Welcome to today's webinar. We have Roisin as our guest speaker today, and she will talk about the consequences of poor diet that interact with our immune system, and most importantly, the impact it has on our mental health. So, Roisin has studied nutrition and health promotion and public health from university before coming to Australia, and where she has developed special interest in mental health. I think she will be better able to explain what she does and how she's going to help us with food and mood today. So over to you, Roshan.
Thanks for the introduction. I'm just going to quickly share my screen. Just give me 1 second. There we are. You should be able to see that okay. Thank you very much for inviting me to be part of the Cred 30-day challenge. I'm very excited to be here today. Obviously, my role at UNSW, I work in the health promotion unit there, so really interested in student mental health and well-being. So as Shilika said, my background is in nutrition, but now I'm mainly working in the field of mental health, which might sound a little bit like a strange combination. I mainly focus on student mental health promotion at UNSW, but it is very exciting that there are a lot of links between what we eat and our mental health. So this is a very exciting area of research that really ties my two interests really nicely together. So I'm delighted to be part of the program today and to get to talk about this. So I think I understand we might all be coming from different countries and have different health messaging where you're coming from, but I'm sure most of you have been exposed to some sort of public health messaging on nutrition, and it's been really focused on the impact that what we eat has on our physical health. So we've heard probably of variations of the 5 a day, an apple a day keeps the doctor away. Some of you may have heard of that one, or you are what you eat. And most of us have an understanding that our diet is linked to our physical health and illness, long-term and short-term illnesses. And traditionally, the Western world would have treated these quite separately. So they viewed physical health as one thing and mental health as another thing. And now the Western world is starting to wake up and see that actually it's really impossible to separate the two things. If your physical health is out of balance, your mental health is going to be impacted, and vice versa. So it's really important to look at the body as one, because they will have such an impact on each other. So it's really not surprising, because whenever you maybe aren't following a healthy diet and you're feeling a little bit out of sorts, it impacts a lot more than your physical health. So how they're connected, we're not 100% sure yet. There's still a lot of research ongoing on the link between our brain and our gut. Some of you may have heard of terms that we use quite often, like go with your gut, maybe gut instincts, a gut reaction. Sometimes we've heard of phrases like your gut being your second brain. So we're kind of aware that there is some kind of connection between our brain and our gut, but we're not really sure what that means. What we do know is that there is a communication channel between the two, and that the gut microbiome has a role in carrying information and what's communicated between our brain and our gut. So our gut microbiome is a very complex, it's an environment where there's lots of different microbes, some good, some bad. Some of that we can control and some of it we cannot. So there's things that we may not have any control over, like how we were born. Were we born naturally? Was it a cesarean? Were we exposed to any viruses or bacteria when we traveled Do we have food poisoning? But there are things we can control, and one of those is our diet, and also our exercise has a say in that as well. So some really exciting research that's come out about the impact of diet on our mental health. I've just included a summary here, but basically a reduction in the risk of mental illnesses by up to 30% just by consuming whole food diets consisting of lots of fruit and vegetables, high quality meat and fish. 50% increase in the likelihood of depression in women who regularly consumed a diet high in refined or processed foods and saturated fats. So they're really high figures there. And then it kind of makes me laugh that this is only 11% about the higher likelihood of good functional health by eating 2 or more servings. So you almost think the link between mental health is even more obvious there than our physical health. So look, there's lots of confusion out there. There are lots of mixed messages about, should you go meat free? Should you go carb free? Should you keto? Which is the best diet? And it can be very overwhelming. One of the diets that consistently shows very positive results for both our physical and our mental health is the Mediterranean diet. So if you haven't heard of this diet before, it is essentially the diet that you would see people naturally eating in Mediterranean countries, so Italy, Spain, those areas. And it is essentially a minimally processed diet. So there's not lots of processed foods that we might have, like 2-minute noodles or processed meats. It's foods that are naturally, haven't had much work to get them from the farm to the fork. Really rich in whole grains. So as you can see in the pyramid here, whole grains really form the basis of the diet. And whole grains are one of those things that we can use to control our gut microbiome environment. So it has a lot of impact on our gut. The Australian adults tend to not get anywhere near the amount of whole grains that we need each day. And essentially you're choosing whole grain versions of foods you might already eat. So whole grain pasta, whole grain rice, whole grain bread, trying to build those into things, maybe just switching out foods you already eat for whole grain versions. 5 veg and 2 fruit. So we came from the 5 a day where I grew up in Ireland. I'm not sure what it would have been with you, but now we're saying it's 5 vegetables and 2 fruit. So really vegetables are forming the basis of our diet. So rather than thinking, what am I going to have with my fish or my chicken or my steak tonight, you're thinking, what am I having with my vegetables tonight? That's really what is the core to what we're eating. And the Mediterranean diet is actually really high in healthy fats. So this goes against some of what the public health recommendations are to choose low fat varieties of fats. Mediterranean diet is rich in healthy fats. So those are the mono and poly unsaturated fats. So those are found in things like olive oil and fish. So that's an important part of the diet. It does allow room for occasional treats. They're up there on the top. If we try to limit ourselves and restrict ourselves too much, it's very hard to sustain a diet that's too restrictive. So allow yourself occasional treats. And I think what's important, don't beat yourself up when you have them. It's okay to have these treats. Just be really present in the moment. When you're enjoying them, actually think about how much you are enjoying it, and you'll tend to not eat as much when you're really presently concentrating on what you are eating. But we don't want you then to feel like you have to spend an hour on the treadmill afterwards to make up for it. This is something that you're allowing yourself just to be present and enjoy it as it goes. Stay hydrated, really important in Australia, especially in the summer. Sometimes we confuse thirst with hunger, and we feel like we are hungry when really we just actually need a drink of water. Moderate alcohol intake. So if you think of the Mediterranean diets, and if you've been to any of those countries before, or maybe observed it in films, normally they would have a glass of wine or 2 with dinner, and even some of the younger children would have that as well. So alcohol does feature in this diet, but it's really used responsibly. So enjoying it with dinner, but not really going beyond what the recommended limits are. And what's really important is to enjoy meals with others. So that's actually stated in the Mediterranean diet. So we're not having TV dinners or eating at our work desk. We're actually switching off and using that as a time to connect with family as well. So just an interesting work that's been carried out on this diet. There is a food and mood centre, if you believe it, in Deakin University in Melbourne. And they're carrying out research on the link between our diet and depression. And what they've found is that participants who have clinical depression can actually see really positive results and remissions as a result of adopting the Mediterranean diet. So really positive results for our physical health and our cardiac health, but also for our mental health as well. I think it's impossible not to talk about our diets being impacted by the new normal that we're all living in at the moment. Some of you may be able to relate to some of these images here. I know it's something even, you know, I'm really conscious of as well. And it's normal, and don't feel too bad or beat yourself up too much about it. But we do know that when we're don't have the usual structure we have in the workplace or in university, our diet does tend to change. And we've observed that for a long time. For example, in school children, they would tend to gain some weight in the summer holidays because they don't have that structure they normally have, and that's quite normal. So some of the initial reports that are coming out about diet and COVID-19 are showing that people are starting to gain weight and eat a little bit more. And I'm not putting any pressure on people. I think there's a lot of pressure out there to be, you know, so healthy and productive during COVID-19, and it is a scary time for us all. But it's just been good to be conscious about how we might be mindlessly eating the things that aren't as good for us. So some of the reasons why people have been, you know, gaining weight and eating less healthy at the minute is because of sight and smell. So actually eating in response to sight and smell instead of hunger. So if you're working next to your kitchen and your housemate is cooking these lovely foods and you're smelling that, that's going to get the taste buds going. That's normal enough. But if you can maybe work out of the kitchen or have your snacks hidden at the back of the cupboard, so every time you open them, you don't see them straight away, that might help. Another reason reported is boredom. No surprises there. So one really helpful thing there is to actually question, am I bored or am I hungry? So one thing that we often think of is the 3 Ds. So that is delay, distract, and decide. So delay yourself for 5 minutes. Maybe just get a little bit of work done and see after 5 minutes, am I still hungry or have I completely forgot that I was hungry? Distract yourself. So do something else. Maybe get up, go for a little walk outside. Remember, not all breaks are for food. So there's breaks where we can, you know, have a little scroll on social media if that's what you want to do, or go for a stroll outside, meditate, something like that. And then decide, am I actually hungry or not? And if you're hungry, then go ahead, eat something. Try to have a healthier snack. Have healthy snacks at hand. So things like veg and hummus, things that will satisfy you, that you don't have to start making, because that will put you off and you'll go straight to the biscuits instead. And the other reason people are eating is in response to stress as well. So no surprises there, quite a stressful time for us. But maybe try something different, like a relaxation technique, or just take a break. It's important to have those little breaks and do something other than eat, because in my usual routine when I'm in the office, I have a 1 hour lunch break, and that's when I eat my food for the day. But if I've got, you know, 5 or 6 little breaks, I can't have lunch every one of those, or I would just do nothing but eat all day. But yeah, just Also, other tips, when you do have something nice, just enjoy it and be mindful. Try not to eat while you're, you know, watching TV. You can consume a lot more calories than you're even realizing you are. And also don't shop when you're hungry, or don't stockpile your quarantine snacks that people were doing. Shops are still open and accessible, so if you really, really have a craving and you don't have anything in the house, it might, you know, put you off actually going there. Or the other option is that you actually get up and walk to the shop, so you're getting a little bit of exercise in there as well. So just don't have them too easily at hand. And just a few tips on a student budget, because I know a lot of you are students and maybe impacted financially by COVID-19 if work's been impacted. So some tips are to bulk buy and meal prep. So a lot of shops now at the moment are offering like larger boxes of food, so kind of giving you the option to bulk buy. So you might want to do that, and then prep your meals and freeze them. If you are doing that, please pay attention to food safety, because food needs to be properly cooled before it is frozen. One tip that I find useful is when you're shopping, look at the price per 100 grams on the label, because you might have one box of cereal and have like 4 different sizes of that. So if you're not sure which is the most cost effective, look at the little price per 100 grams and you'll know you're getting the best bargain from that. Buy in season, so that obviously reduces transport and importation costs. Frozen veg is okay. It's just as good in terms of the nutrient value as fresh vegetables. It also helps reduce waste. So at the end of the week, when you haven't got around to eating your broccoli, throwing it in the bin, if it's in the freezer, then you don't have to feel so bad, and it means you always have it at hand. Bulk up meals with vegetables. So for example, a shepherd's pie, you might want to add some carrots, onions, peas. It just tends to make the food go a little bit further. And when you are out and about, bring a refillable bottle, so you're less tempted to go and buy the Red Bull or the Cokes or Lucozade. And it's also obviously much better for the environment as well. So always have a bottle at hand. I've got mine here, and you can keep hydrated, and it makes sure that you're not getting your thirst confused with hunger as well. So that is the end of my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Roshan. That was very insightful, and I have a few questions though. Um, what do you think we could have like immediate food when you're feeling really depressed and anxious?
Yeah. So I think, as I said, obviously long term, diets like the Mediterranean diet have been shown to be very protective of our mental health. But if it's in an instant, if you actually just want something you're feeling really stressed out and anxious and you want something to cheer yourself up, just have something you enjoy and allow yourself that, and recognize how you're feeling. You don't want it to become a crutch though when you start to comfort eat all the time. So I would then start looking at other ways to manage your stress. So getting some exercise, practicing mindfulness meditation, and then seeing after that if you're still hungry, then go for it. But that might be enough then to relieve your stress. It's okay in moderation, but you just don't want to become reliant on it.
Yeah. That's good. And so I was having a discussion with my friend about this, that I have a lot of trouble sleeping, and that could be due to my poor diet. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. There's a lot of reasons why you may have trouble sleeping, and lots of different aspects to sleep hygiene to think about. So I would look at those as well. The study that I mentioned earlier about some of the reports of people putting on weight as a result of COVID, they did actually see that was for people. There was an association between people who got less than 6 hours sleep as well. So diet and sleep are very much interlinked. It's important to think about the timing of your meals, and I recognize that a lot of cultures have their main meals at very different times. So some cultures, they have their evening meal at maybe 11 o'clock at night. If Ronan will know, maybe some farmers in the west of Ireland would have their evening their main meal of the day at lunchtime at 12 o'clock. And for others, that's maybe around 5 or 6 in the evening. So there's no, I suppose, people's cultures, they would eat at different times, but we do know that your body is working to digest your food after a meal. So if you're having a heavy meal just before bed, your body's not going to get into that proper rest mode. So ideally you want to eat a few hours before bed. In terms of certain foods, I would look at what you're maybe having in the day, which could be impacting your sleep. Caffeine obviously is found in coffee, but it's also found in some foods like chocolate. It's also found in teas, and green tea also contains caffeine. Caffeine has quite a long half-life. So it takes about 6 hours to get half of the caffeine out of your body. So if you think maybe at 3 p.m, if you're having a strong coffee, like a 2-shot cappuccino, you know, that's the same at taking a single shot cappuccino at 9 p.m, which you wouldn't do. So really looking at your caffeine intake throughout the day, and, you know, also thinking about there's certain foods, you know, you might notice that you have a sugar crash in the afternoon, wherever you have that afternoon slump. And there's some research to show that there's certain proteins in our body which do help us switch off and wind down. The best way to have that is to have a protein and carbohydrate meal together, because the protein that helps your body produce melatonin and fall asleep, it's absorbed with carbohydrates. So things like maybe having beans on toast, or cheese and crackers. So getting the carbohydrate and the protein together can actually help us release that melatonin in our body and start to wind down. But I think what's most important is the schedule and when you're eating and having that routine. And as I said, food's one part of a big picture of reasons that you may be noticing your sleep impacted.
Okay, that that's a lot to think about and work on. So I have a bunch of questions which I will ask you some other time, but we have our audience, and I want to open this to our audience, and I urge you all to ask Roisin questions that might be bothering you guys, and Roisin will try her best to advise you.
So I've just had one question there. When would it be recommended to have the heaviest meal in the day? I don't think there's a perfect answer for this, and I do think, you know, it depends on you know, your circadian rhythm, which is your kind of sleep wake pattern. It kind of forms a habit for yourself over time, and different cultures have different ways in doing that. And I'm not sure how much research there is into it, but I would say if you're struggling to sleep and you're having your main heavy meal just before bed, I would bring that forward a few hours and see if that makes a difference. I'm kind of going off the track as well, but there is also you know, some research to show that having you eaten before bedtime can lead to extra weight gain as well. So we do recommend a few hours before bed, because you want your body to be able to kind of break down your food, get your nutrients out of that, and then whenever you're sleeping, it goes into that rest and digest mode. So it's kind of not working so hard trying to break down your food just while you're sleeping.
Okay. That's really good.
Hi, Roisin. I have one question. I can see that most of the participants today are from UNSW. So I just wanted to know that how UNSW can support students for their mental health and well-being.
Yeah, that's a great question. I work as part of the Student Life and Communities team. So I'm within Student Health and Wellbeing. We have lots of different services that are available for students. There is student support advisors, which a lot of people haven't heard of, but they're a brilliant team that I work closely with. They're a really good starting point if you've got any concerns about your well-being. They work really closely with the counselling team, so if they feel that your needs would be better met by the counselling team, they can help you access that. But sometimes the things that are causing, you know, things to occur with our mental health is because by stressors that the student support team can help provide information and support on. So for example, if it's a financial concern, if it's to do with your accommodation, your student visa, The student support team are a really good starting point because they can provide that practical support, which may relieve the stress. And if you do need to speak to a psychologist, then they can help refer you on as well. They're also really well trained in mental health themselves. So obviously then there is CAPS, which is free, it's confidential, it's not linked to your academic record. You don't need Medicare or Medibank for that at the moment. There's no, you don't need a GP referral, anything. The health service is also available if you prefer to speak to a GP. They can provide a mental health care plan if you want to go externally. They also have mental health nurse and psychiatrist on campus as well. So there's lots of great services. One thing I would recommend you check out if you're kind of feeling okay but want to stay well is This Way Up, which is a partnership between UNSW and St. Vincent's Anxiety Clinic, and it's free online wellbeing courses, which was designed with UNSW students. And they also have kind of more structured courses for people with various mental health concerns that you might want to check out as well.
Hi,
Thank you.
Roisin. I wanted to ask, sometimes when we are worried, we don't eat food, but we know we have to eat food. Like on the exam day, when we have exam at 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock, we don't, like for me, it's like, I know that I have to have breakfast then, but because of I'm worried, I would not eat anything, and then my exam will be affected. So what would you recommend to eat something at that time, because we don't feel like eating and we cannot eat heavy food at that time?
Yeah. And look, I think that links into that connection between the brain and the stomach. So if you're, you know, feeling really anxious and nervous, and you can have some, you know, symptoms in your tummy, you might have constipation, diarrhea, butterflies in your tummy, and it can be off-putting and people can lose their appetite. Exams often go on for a few hours, so it's really important that you do eat something just so that you're able to concentrate and you're not feeling hungry a few hours in, and maybe you start to settle then and the hunger pains come through. I would say probably have something that's not going to agitate you too much. So maybe just something quite bland, that's not too spicy, you know, not as flavoursome, probably not as appetizing, but just something that's not going to cause any issues. As exams do last for quite a while, I would suggest getting some carbohydrates in there, some slow releasing carbohydrates, so it'll keep, you'll not have a spike in energy and then have a slump after it. So sometimes students will have Red Bull and lots of sugary things to think, okay, I need to get my energy up, but that will crash, and you need to really think, okay, I need energy throughout this exam. So this is where the whole grains will come in. So it suggests, you know, even if it's just a slice of whole grain toast or something that's, you know, not going to be too off-putting, there's not a lot of smells coming through it. Sometimes when we're feeling really anxious, the smell of food's enough to put us off. So something like that that's going to slowly release energy to keep you going throughout the exam. And also maybe have something like a banana. I'm not sure if you're allowed to bring food in with you, but if you can, maybe bring in a banana or something, where if you find that your energy's starting to slump as you go further through the exam, you can get another little boost in energy to keep you going.
Claire has one more question, Roisin.
Just before we go on, Charles, sorry, I do acknowledge that we've just gone to 2 o'clock, so I know some people may need to leave. So if you do need to leave, please do feel free to leave. And just from everybody in Cred, that was absolutely fantastic, Roisin. Thank you so much from a nutrition perspective, but also I think from the wellbeing and mental health and wellbeing support from UNSW, absolutely fantastic. And for people who do need to leave, one of the things we talked about in this community is the benefits of being able to build your network and connect. So please do reach out and connect with Roisin and do say hi. If you do need to leave us, thank you for joining us. But if you do want to stay, Roisin, are you okay to stay for another couple of minutes?
I'm good, yep.
We have just one question from Claire, which I wanted to say. So she says that if we get hungry before bed, any healthy snacks recommended? As I found it very hard to sleep tight with an empty stomach personally.
Yeah, that can be hard. Look, as I said, those snacks, maybe a little bit of cheese on a cracker, so you're getting that protein and carbohydrate together. Sometimes cereal, milk, those kind of things can help us get into that sleepy stage, I would say something really light, something that's not too salty or anything like that, because then you end up being really, really thirsty. So just something light, and just try a few different things and see how you go. But it's important that you're not feeling too hungry before bed, because then you're not going to have a great night's sleep, and you'll wake up and find yourself at the fridge at 3 a.m. and looking at all those unhealthy snacks.
Absolutely.
Does anybody else have any questions for Roisin? I see some wonderful comments here. Roisin, everybody is absolutely delighted with the session. Amazing and insightful session. Maybe think twice about grabbing some snacks right now. Yeah. I find it, I'm sitting in the kitchen here and I'm like, oh my God, I've got to think about the 3 Ds. Yes. I drink way too much coffee. And I think it helped me reframe, Roisin, what protein am I going to have in my vegetables as opposed to the other way around. That was very helpful. But I think the other thing, Roisin, you shared, which was, I think we need to be kind to ourselves at this time. It's an incredibly stressful time for people. So let's not judge ourselves, but thanks for sharing some wonderful strategies there, and a really insightful session, Roisin.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much to Shloka for facilitating that session. Wonderful. And for managing the questions, to Shaila as well for introducing everybody. I just want to talk very briefly around. So we've had a weekly theme, and last week was move. So this week's theme, we'd like to invite you in a theme of food and mood to share a picture of your healthy food choice on social, and with the hashtag food and mood. If you are part of the Cred community, please do it there or whatever social channels you're part of. In terms of supporting you, for those of you who are not already using the Cred mobile app, please do sign up to the app at this address. It's got 3 simple actions to support your mental health and well-being each day, should I say. 2 to support yours, and 1 to support other people's mental health. If you haven't done so already, please do join the Cred community for students on Facebook. And join us again on Friday. Well, we will be here again at 1:30 to help you finish the week feeling reflective, but also with a sense of achievement. So I'll go through this very briefly. Here's the mobile app if you haven't seen it. The 3 daily actions are: focus, record 3 things you're grateful for; move for at least 15 minutes every day; connect and check in with one other person. These are some default actions. But after you've done these for 30 days, you do have the ability to choose whatever ones you want. And it sounds like we should probably incorporate some food and mood ones in there, Roisin, as well. We might have to ask you to help us design some as well. So this is the address to sign up for the Cred app if you want to use it. credhub.org/sign up. If you have any questions, please reach out at hello@cred.global, and one of our team will respond to you. And the Cred community for students is at Facebook, is the group where it's a closed group where we want to support each other. We want to encourage each other, inspire each other, and a little bit of accountability in there as well. So in summary, this is our gift to the community of students, and it was a brainchild of Shloka and Shaila to come up with it. And if this has been of value to you, we do invite you to bring your friends and encourage them to join. And thank you. I see so many people here on the call who have done that already. So we're very grateful. I don't want to put people on the spot, but I know so many people have done a fantastic job in sharing and helping us grow this community. Once more, Roisin, thank you so much for an absolutely wonderful session.
Sorry, we have one person, Rohan, who wants to ask a question.
Oh, yes, sorry. My apologies.
Yeah.
Hi. Hi, so my question is it necessary that we have to consume something before exercise, or we can just proceed empty stomach?
Look, it probably depends on how some people like to exercise in the morning before they have anything to eat, and that works better for them. Other people prefer to exercise later in the day when they've got some food in your stomach. So I think This is kind of going into the area of sports nutrition, which is a bit beyond me, to be honest. But I know personally, like, I exercise better in the evening because I've had, you know, some calories and energy in the day. Whenever I do the exact same workout in the morning, it takes a lot more out of me. So I think it's probably useful to work out what's better for you and what your kind of fitness goals are, I suppose. In terms of like protein shakes and all that stuff that people are interested in, I'd probably just have a look. My kind of advice on that as well is, like, you can get protein without going into protein shakes. Like, even just a glass of milk will give you protein. So just have a look at how you can really get your nutrients from actual food. And then if you've got like more specific needs and you've got a fitness goal, then I would speak to you know, a sports nutritionist, or maybe your trainer has a little bit of information on that as well.
Yeah. Thank you.
No worries.
Thanks, Charlotte, for facilitating that. Well, again, we are back here again at 1:30 p.m. on Friday. So please do join us to help you finish the week with reflection and with a sense of achievement. Thanks again. Thanks, Roisin. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlotte,
Bye-bye.
and thank you everyone for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.